Have you ever been in a game where it felt like nobody knew what they were doing? Maybe your Omen was just teleporting into spawn expecting to get kills. Maybe your Reyna was just lurking in showers the entire game. Those games suck, and they're going to continue to keep happening. But I have some tips that are going to make them happen less. This way they aren't constantly plaguing all of your matchmaking games. If you're watching this video and you aren't familiar with the term IGL, basically what it refers to is the person who's going to be calling the shots. They're going to be telling you what the play is, who's going where, all that sorts of stuff. And in competitive, the IGL role is normally fairly simple just because there's no trust between the players. But that's why it's incredibly important that you're able to build up that trust quickly to give your team a better chance in winning the game. I think I've had a lot of people ask me in the past if they should pick up the IGL role, and the answer to that is if you have the ability to do so and you think you're a good IGL, yeah, taking control of that role in a competitive game is a great way to do it. Generally, when you're thinking about Valorant and climbing, you should be thinking that you are the best player on your team. Realistically, right, if you're playing at a plat lobby and you believe that you belong at a higher rank, you're probably the best player on your team, and you should be guiding them, but you should be guiding them appropriately, and that's why I'm making this video. And luckily, I may have never graduated from college, but I did go to school for communications back in the day. God, am I that old? I'm already saying back in the day. The common consensus is that it's actually kind of a joke to go to school for communications, but I actually did learn some pretty helpful things, and I'm going to share those things with you today. I noticed most people don't do these things, but they're simple and effective in steering conversations in the directions that you want to go in team environments, and hopefully they can be helpful for you. But before we get into it, I wanted to shout out, if you guys wanted a more direct way at improving, we are starting a VOD review series over on our Patreon, so you guys can feel free to check that out in the description below. You're also free to cancel within the first month period, free of charge. So yeah, thank you all the patrons for supporting the channel, and let's get into it. The first thing I want you guys to be focusing on when IGLing, and this is super important, you need to be using we language when you speak to your team. If this is an unfamiliar term to you, basically the best example I could provide you is if you have a Reyna who's dry peeking an operator, don't call out the Reyna directly, refer to your team as a whole. Rather than singling that Reyna out directly, say something like, hey, let's use our utility to clear that jet off of that op angle next time. You don't even need to include the next time. Just say, hey, let's use your utility to force jet off of op angles. And remember, you don't even need to say we, you can use just other inclusive language, but the whole point is just to not isolate people on your team and make them feel like they are the issue. Because one of two things are going to happen if you single somebody out. The first one is probably the better one, actually. They're going to feel like they're a liability to the team, and they're going to start playing worse. And you might be wondering, that sounds awful. Why is that the better one? Well, the other option is they're going to get upset, enter fight or flight, and they're going to start arguing with you and telling you that you're dog shit, and then you've ruined the entire dynamic of the team. This applies to any industry. If you're working in a restaurant or something and you're yelling at your group of people, you want to use we language as well. But I think that's a little bit different of that dynamic, because if you have a manager who's actually a higher role than somebody else, they're yelling at a server or something, then they can single that person out a little bit more appropriately, and there's not really anything the server can do to fight back. But in a team dynamic on Valorant, you are all equals. You're not better than this play. You're in the same rank. You're playing together. I don't care if you're smurfing or where the hell you are. You're in the same game and you're the same rank. So they're going to see you as equals. And if you start acting like you're better than that player, they're going to get very upset with you. This is why whenever there's a problem, you address the team as a whole rather than just singling out one player. Something I wanted to point out too is, although that flaming somebody obviously isn't beneficial to the team, and that's pretty shitty to just go off on somebody, the person flaming is almost as bad as the person who's instigating that argument. So if you're one of the types of people who is just constantly berating somebody for making bad plays and they start going off on you, you are just as liable as they are. And remember, once your team starts arguing, your chances of winning drop dramatically. So it's just not even worth it. We language isn't perfect, and obviously when you use it, people are still going to know who you're talking about most of the time, but it's just better so that you're not singling somebody out and making them feel like they are the only problem on the team. You're acknowledging that it's a team game rather than just making somebody else the problem. Moving on to our next tip though, and that is, if you want somebody to do something, it's a lot easier to get them to do it if you give them a specific way to start that task. Does that make any sense? For example, if I wanted my Reyna to engage onto a site, rather than telling my Reyna to engage, what I would tell my Reyna to do is, hey, can you flash this corner for us? Obviously, the next step after flashing a corner normally is going to be, we're going to follow it up. So after you've given her that first step to initiate that push, she already knows what to do. Same thing goes for smokes and recons too. It seems like the common trend in this meta right now is just to blame your duelist for baiting, and you'll tell them to engage, but rather than telling them to engage, if you just tell them what to do specifically, they'll probably be a lot more likely to do it. Have you seen that clip where the guy's screaming at the girl? He's like, name a woman. Name a woman! It's a similar thing when you just tell somebody to engage, but you don't really tell them how to do it, right? They'll start to get flustered. They'll start to make mistakes. Maybe they go out dry peeking everything rather than using their utility, actually. It's going to be a lot better if you just calmly say, hey, can we just use our flash right here? Now, it's important that you follow him up after, otherwise he might lose trust in you, but I mean, like, you guys get the point. If I tell you to go win the game, obviously there's a lot of steps involved in actually winning the game, but if I tell you to, hey, win this round using your Killjoy ultimate, it's going to provide a lot more of a centralized focus on what you should do in the round to win that round, which will inevitably bring you closer to winning the game, which will help you win the game. If you're given a specific starting point, it's going to be a lot easier for you to do that task than if you just like kind of tell somebody to go do that task. Speaking of specific though, let's talk about strats in Valorant. Because after playing Valorant for the last year, if I've learned one thing, it's that players are stupid. Even something such as setting up a simple bait can be like you're climbing Mount Everest. This is why when calling a strat in comp, it's very important that you keep it as simple as possible. I wouldn't recommend doing any crazy double rotates, Astro Wall, Omen TP behind the wall, raise double satchel, ulti in. Instead, just keep it simple. Tell Omen to smoke, tell Reyna to blind, and go in. You're playing with players that you've never met before, likely. It's not really worth it to overcomplicate things, and you have to keep in mind that they have a different perspective than you. Something that seems simple to you might not have ever occurred to them. Playing comp for this last year has really taught me that it seems like most players are pretty much all aim, no brain. It seems like they come from other FPS games. Maybe it's like Call of Duty, maybe it's CSGO or whatever. Maybe it's even Apex, honestly. And they likely downloaded the game just because it's another FPS. It's another game where they can shoot people and show off their FPS skills. I come from strategy games. I come from like chess. I come from League of Legends. I come from TFT. I guess League isn't really it's kind of a strategy. Yeah. If you're looking to improve your IGL skills, I'm assuming that you're probably a little bit of a strategy guy yourself. I'm telling you, keep your strategy simple, give your team a clear objective, and it will help you win more games. And the very last tip I have for you guys, and this is a simple one, so I'll keep it brief, you have to lead with confidence. If you're not confident, nobody's going to listen to you. And I know some people watching this video are maybe in the younger demographic. Maybe you're even a woman. I know that the toxic community in Valorant can be pretty rough for you sometimes. But if you lead with confidence, you're far more likely to be taken seriously. And if you come across somebody toxic in your game, you just have to mute them. It's not worth it. They're not going to provide helpful comms. They're not going to make the game better for you. You need to mute them in both voice and text. I know a lot of people will just mute them in voice and then they'll have a text argument with the person for the next 10 minutes. You don't need to do that. Just mute them on both. Be the bigger person. Move on with your life. You don't even need to tell them that you're muting them. That's not an obligation. When you meet somebody, I don't need to tell them that I'm muting them. Just move on with your life. You understand how sad that person has to be? They're arguing with some dude on the internet for no reason. Some 13-year-old. They're arguing with a 13-year-old kid on the internet. They're being a dick to this kid. It's not worth it, dude. It's not worth it. Anyway, though, that's going to do it for this video today. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel down below. It really does help me out. And if you are interested in our VOD review series, be sure to check out our Patreon as well. Lastly, I really wanted to shout out our community customs that have been running in Discord recently. I actually can't take any credit for them. I initially started hosting some customs on stream and the people in the community just loved them and they started hosting their own in the community. And yeah, now they're even setting up a tournament. So yeah, if you guys wanted to take part in that, be sure to check out the Discord. The least I can do is shout them out. So that's freaking awesome. We'll keep you guys updated in the Discord and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.